Om Niranjanam Nityam Anantarupam Bhaktanukampa Dhृतविग्रहं Vahe Ishavataram Parameshamidyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasha Namah. Namaste and welcome to our study of the Bhagavad Gita. We are studying chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion. So let us go to our notes and then continue from there. We had covered up to, I think, verse 12, where Sri Krishna is giving various options for the devotee to practice devotion. He sets the highest goal as that state where one can constantly and continuously unite the mind with the divine without any break. But he also understands that the natural tendency of the mind is to be distracted to the external world, and we have all our duties, responsibilities to take care. So it's not possible for everyone to be constantly and continuously united with the divine. So he gives 3 or 4 options. And just a quick revision, he says, in verse 8, he says, the goal is Maya May Avesha Mano Yamam or Mayeva Manadhaswa May Buddhim Niveshaya Nivashishasi May Eva Atha Urdhvam Na Samshaya. So this is fix your mind on me alone. In me alone rest your intellect. And let there be no doubt hereafter, if you can do that, that your mind, the Jivatma, will become united with the Paramatma. That is the ultimate goal. But he says, if, however, you are unable to establish your mind steadily on me, atha chittam samadhatum na saknoshi mai sthiram. Na saknoshi. If you're not able to, mai sthiram, in me, sthiram is constant, steadily. Then, abhyasa yogena tato. Seek to reach me or unite me through the practice of abhyasa. Mam ichhaptum or dhananjaya. So in abhyasa means there's no continuity. There are breaks, and then you make another effort to reconnect, and there will be breaks, and there will be another effort to reconnect. That is the practice of abhyasa, which is what happens through at the time of japa, or what we call meditation. You'll find here and there the mind wanders away. We bring it back to contemplation of the divine form and repetition of the mantra. Many people will find that it's also difficult to even have that type of practice where the mind is really rebellious and it takes off, and it's very difficult to bring it even for a moment. It goes out for long time. So Sri Krishna says, okay, if you are unable to practice, that means are unable to do abhyasa, quietly sit down and focus on the divine in one's own heart, then what are you doing? Of course, the mind goes out and you're busy with working, doing something. The karma and the jnanendriyas are active, and the karmendriyas are active. So that is how we do work. Work should not be limited to physical activity, mental activity, thinking. Even meditation is a type of work. So he says, if you're not able to uh, practice abhyasa, sitting down and meditation, which is, we can't do that 24 hours, might do that for half an hour. Then what do you do for the rest of the day? One is busy with various activities. So he says, by all means, do those activities, but let there not be work for yourself only. It should be done as a worship, work for me. So be intent on doing the works for me. So he makes that allowance also. In this understanding, we should not think that work is antagonistic to spiritual life. People should not say, oh, that is spiritual life and this is my worldly life. Whatever is one thing. It's in our understanding that we demarcate them as spiritual or worldly. But here Sri Krishna is trying to say how we can spiritualize that work also. So this is very, very interesting and powerful. Remember, normally people think that devotion means, is the traditional ritual and ceremonies and bhajan and kirtan and all that. But look at the wide, expansive definition given by Sri Krishna. He says even what is called karma yoga also comes in the purview of work if it is done not for oneself, but it is done as an offering to the divine. And why would you do that? What is the rationale for that? Well, with a deeper understanding that the consciousness that is within us, by which the physical body and the mental body perform various activities, all those activities are possible so long that consciousness operates through us. And that consciousness is a spark of the divine consciousness, who is what is Brahman, or the supreme being. And therefore, in truth, in this understanding, we should not appropriate to ourselves and say, I am the doer, but be honest and say true and say, the divine really works through me. So, this idea that I am not the doer has to be deeply drilled into our thinking. Only then we would be able to say that this work is being done as an offering to the divine. And in through this also one will attain perfection. And then he says, if you are unable to do that also, see, so many stages are given, so many allowances are being made. Athaitat api ashaktosi kartum madhyogam then sarva karma phalatyagam tato kuru yatatmavan. Sarva karma phalatyaga. Tyaga means renounce. Renounce doesn't mean not working. Means you work, but do not appropriate the fruits of that work, karma phala, to oneself. Why? Just related to the explanation given to the earlier verse, because it's really the divine who's doing the work. And why and how can we really think that I am doing the work? If we feel that, that would be as a result of ignorance. So out of ignorance, one can have this idea that I am the doer, and that's where all the problem starts. When spiritual realization takes place, then one truly understands that God alone is the doer. We all are verily instruments in this hand. And so, bhakti yoga can be practiced in so many ways. Yes, through a ritual and ceremony in the morning when we visit the shrine, light the lamp, incense stick, make some offerings, sit down, chant some mantras, do some japa and meditation. But apart from that, outside that, when we go out and do our various duties, cooking food, looking after family members, so going out in the world and working, all these things, activities can too be converted into a spiritual practice if we are alert to this understanding that behind the body, behind the mind, behind the ego, it is the divine universal consciousness which is pulling the strings, and we all are nothing more than puppets in the divine hands. And so we live in that attitude that I am the servant of the divine, God is the master, I am the servant, or God is the divine mother, I am the child. One of these spiritual attitudes should be taken up, and we should be very strongly established in that. These are called the bhavas, a particular spiritual relationship between ourselves and God. And of course, in the scriptures, they say five months. What are they? Shanta Bhava, the traditional attitude of the Vedic rishis contemplating on the Brahman. Dasya Bhava is the attitude, I am the servant of the divine, just like Hanumanji. Sakhya Bhava, I am the friend, like Arjuna or Sudama of Sri Krishna, that type of relationship. Vatsalya Bhava, I am the child. Oh no, no, what you call God is the child, like Yashoda and Rama, or Kaushalya and Rama and Yashoda and Krishna. And Madhura Bhava, the relationship between Krishna and Radhika. To that, another one has been ended by Sri Ram Krishna, which is the Santana Bhava. I am the child, God is the divine mother. That's the purest, simplest, and easiest one to do, take up. And so, whichever way, one must not jump around from this to that, but in the spiritual discipline, work on one particular relationship with God and strengthen and put that into practice. Then Sri Krishna says, gives a bit of a comparison. He says, Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasat. Shreya means better, higher. So knowledge is higher than practice. In knowledge, the mind becomes sort of identified with a knowledge is formed when the knower and the known come into contact together. We have discussed this concept earlier. So a chitta vritti is formed, a concept or idea is formed, and that is superior to the actual practice of abhyasa. Jnana dhyana vishishyate. In dhyana is superior even to knowledge. In dhyana, the meditator becomes united with the object of meditation. Superior to even dhyana, okay, is dhyanat karma falatyaga. Because meditation, dhyana is also a type of activity, a type of karma. And one can say, oh, I'm meditating so much, and therefore a particular spiritual result should come to me. And because I'm the meditator, that result should come to me. So that is dhyana karma phala. And even sacrificing that dhyana karma phala tyaga. So when that karma phala tyaga is done, then what happens? Then what we get, what we are seeking for ultimately, which is shanti. Tyagat shanti manantaram. Memorize that. Remember this particular part of the verse. Tyagat shantim anantaram. In Sanskrit, when the word tyagat, the case ending is there, it means from, resulting from. So the outcome of renunciation is peace, shanti. And there are various nice stories are there in the scriptures to illustrate this particular point, how through renunciation one gets peace. Because it's our attachment to things, people, objects that really takes us on a world tour or creates so much confusion in our mind. When something happens according to our way, then we are happy. When it doesn't happen, then we are not happy. And so the pendulum swings between happiness and misery because of success and failure and so on. So when we can be in the world, be engaged in various activities, which is what Sri Krishna was trying to tell Arjuna, don't run away, fight there, but give up the result of whatever you will do. Do not be attached to victory if it comes, and do not be attached to be affected by failure or defeat when it if that happens. Just be a instrument. Like a pen, when it is writing in the hands of a writer, if it writes beautifully, the pen doesn't become very happy. It says, ah, so nicely I have written. Or if somebody scribbles uh, not so nicely, the pen doesn't get this unhappy. It is just a pen, and all its work is to let the ink flow. So we are just a channel through which the divine energy flows, and we have to just make sure that that flow is not impeded. What impedes that flow? The ego. Ego is what blocks that flow, and so problems happen. There's a beautiful story. I might have told this before, but it's good to mention this again here. It is one of the stories from the Avaduta Gita. Avaduta is a wandering monk. And as he went around on his parikrama and pilgrimage, he saw many things and he learned many lessons from them. And each one of them he called as his teacher. So one day he was sitting on the bank of the river, and some fishermen were casting a net, catching the fish. In the rivers, you get this very small fish. And as they brought the fish to the embankment, one bird, they call it a kite, that eats fish, it scooped maybe a kingfisher or something, and picked one of the fish and flew up in the sky, uh, going into looking for some particular place, tree or somewhere to sit down and enjoy its meal. And suddenly it heard some noise behind it, and he looked around and saw there's a whole flock of birds following it. So he said, my God, why are they following me? So he changed the direction to the right, and he saw the birds are turning behind him. He went to the left, up, down, this way, that way, whichever direction it went, this flock of birds were in hot pursuit. And he was under too much stress and fear and panic. And in all that hustle bustle, that fish that was in its beak slipped out and fell. And it saw that the whole flock of fish scooped after that fish and left it alone. The kingfisher went and sat on the branch with a great relief and said, oh my God, they were not really after me. They were after the fish which I was holding. And from this, Avaduta understood that so long he held this fish in its beak, all the problems were chasing it. So in life, you'll find that when you have got all these problems chasing you, don't blame the problems. Look at yourself. What is the fish you are attached to? What you are holding that they are after? And if you learn to let that go, you'll find that most of the problems will also abandon you and leave you in peace. Tyagat Shantim Anantaram. It's a beautiful teaching. And so, Tyaga, renunciation, is to be understood in this positive spiritual way. It is not simply leaving few things or enjoyments of the world, renouncing home, family, or this and that, and becoming a monk or something like that. Here it means mental non-attachment to the things of the world. You can be in the midst of the world activities, but being without attachment. That is the teaching here. They give various examples. The boat is in the water, but the water is not in the boat. Or the duck goes and takes a swim in the water, comes out and gives a shake, and all the water runs off. That means the water does not get attached to itself. Likewise, we are supposed to do our duties and responsibilities, so but without any attachment. So, but until we have perfected that art, we will have the result of work. Offer that to the divine as an offering. Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. That's how we should practice this. Now begins the group of teachings or practices. Until now, the goal was set. What is the purpose of bhakti? How the mind has to be united, depending on the qualification or in the where we are in the spiritual journey. The various aspirants will adopt different practices that will be conducive to their uh, progress. They will sort all that out. But what are the various practices that we will do while in the midst of various activities in this world? So, these are to be practiced. Advesta sarva bhutanam maitra karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankara samadukha sukha shami. Advesta. Dvesh means being hateful. When you don't like somebody or something very strongly, then that aversion to that particular person is dvesha. So when not being hateful, when you put the prefix a in front of a particular word, that becomes the opposite of it. So advesta. He is not hateful to sarva bhutana, towards any creature. That means he does not feel repulsion for anything, even for what may be the cause of sorrow to oneself. For he sees all beings as his own self. Matta sarvam pravartate. See, in the spiritual goal, we have to understand what God realization means. If we are, as human beings, different waves, God is that ocean. God realization means that one should have that type of universal feeling of I-ness similar to that of the ocean. And so, if that is the goal, then we should constantly try to adopt all those qualities of the ocean. And what does the ocean say? It says, all the waves belong to me. They are projected out of me, they're sustained by me, they return to me. Some are big, some are small, and all that. But they are all mine. So, that type of feeling, understanding, one can have that intellectual understanding, but that is not sufficient. It should be translated into actual action, is to feel no matter how different people are with us, they might have different views, opinions, appearances, and all those type of things. But ultimately, they all are different waves in that ocean. And since I want to become one with the ocean, which is what is called realization of Brahmagyana means, I cannot do that by excluding anyone out of it. Otherwise, those two things are contradictory. So one has to very vigilant and have that clear understanding. And if anytime some hatred or dislike, strong dislike arises in the mind, one must knock it down and say, this is not conducive. This type of attitude and feeling is not conducive to my spiritual growth or spiritual aspiration, because how can I be the whole and at the same time consider others to be separate from me or other than me? Because dvesha or hatred or anger are feelings that create divisions, separations, while love, kindness, compassion, and all these other feelings, friendliness, they promote oneness. So you'll find, just like in science, we have got the two types of forces, the centripetal force and the centrifugal force. One going pushing inwards, integrating, the other one is separating, going outwards. In mathematics, you have integration and differentiation. Anything that integrates takes us to that common oneness. Anything that separates sep- um, creates more division in there. So in this set of teachings, as we go down these verses, you'll find you'll be able to sort of classify the result of those practices. So advesta sarva bhutanam means not having hatred or dislike to others. That's a practice that is going to take us towards the center. Okay. And then we'll look at which ones are the opposite that take us away. Those which take us towards the center, those are the do's. And those that take us away from the center, or that oneness or wholeness, those are the don'ts. So this is sort of the broad outline, a very rational outline to what is moral and what is immoral, what is spiritually conducive and what is spiritually harmful, what should be done and what should be avoided. So Advaita Sarvabhutana. Then Maitra. Maitra means Mitra, from that the word comes. He is friendly. And when you're friendly, then it's you welcome that person close to you. And you have nice conversation, you are able to share and all those things, as we understand friendship is. So such a person is friendly with all. Okay. Karuna evacha. And he is also very compassionate. When he sees this sorrow of others, then he feels in his own heart. Why does it feel? Well, he says, look, what that person is and who am I, both of are verily just two waves in that ocean. I exist in that form also. Sometimes it's difficult to understand, but within your own family, how do you feel? Like a mother and child. Of course, you'll see if anything happens to the child, the mother feels the sorrow. Why? Because she feels a very strong identification with that particular child. And then a little bit more within family members, extended family members. But sometimes beyond that circle, those who are others out there, your neighbor or people down the street or whoever there, if they are sick or whatever happens to them, one doesn't feel the same way as they would feel for your own close family members. So sometimes indifference comes, sometimes all types of reactions come. But if one aspires for realization, self-realization, which is that universal consciousness, then one has to have that compassion, knowing that that same divine exists who resides in one's own heart, resides in the heart of all beings. In the teachings of Holy Mother, she teaches this very, very nicely in the simplest of languages. She says, and I'm quoting almost, in the fullness of one's realization, That means through spiritual practice, as the heart becomes pure. In the fullness of one's realization, meditation, one realizes that the one who dwells in one's own heart dwells in the hearts of all beings. And thus one becomes truly humble. You cannot have a egotistic idea, because the same God that you are worshipping in your heart dwells in the heart of others. How can you uh, and if you love him and worship in your own heart, then the natural thing would be that you'd be able to love and worship him in the hearts of all beings. And so that is the idea behind Ramakrishna Mission's ideal of service. Shiva Jnane, Jiva Seva. Seva, worship or serve others in the understanding and knowledge that Shiva, who resides in one's own heart, Krishna, who resides in one's own heart, resides in the heart of all beings. Not to only do this intellectually, but also to put it into action. Many times the intellect understands, but it doesn't get translated through action. Why? The action, the mind, intellect rationalizes, and sometimes it finds different types of excuses not to do something. For example, if they see the suffering of others, then it comes up with some explanation. Oh, it is their karma, so what can I do, type of thing. But when it really touches the heart, then it will translate into action, and you will reach out and sacrifice some of your own comfort and whatever to save others. Those others are not really others, they are our own self in those forms out there. And as a spiritual seeker, we want to really put into action what we feel in our own heart. It's not just good enough to intellectually say, oh, the one who dwells in my own heart dwells in the heart of all beings, and yet be indifferent to all others. Sometimes our own philosophies get a bit misinterpreted. And so there's a nice story about this. When Swami Vivekananda returned from America, and he was very popular and famous, and he was given a nice reception. He was at one day at the house of some devotee, and some young people came to meet him, and they sought audience with him, and Swamiji met them and said, so they said, Swamiji, we are taking care of these elderly old cows that have stopped giving milk. We don't want them to go to the butcher, so we have put a goshala. And so to take care of these elderly mother cows, we need some funds, if you can help us with that. So Swamiji said, that's a very good thing you're doing. But tell me, uh, right now there's a great famine. So many people are suffering and dying. Orphans are on the street because parents are dead, and all those things are happening. What are you doing about them? And are you doing something for these people, suffering men, human beings? And the reply was, oh, Swamiji, their suffering is due to their karma. And so when they gave that explanation, Swamiji got a little upset and angry. And so he said, but so if you say that same law will then apply, that if the cows are going to the butcher, then it is their karma. And then he says, oh, but Swamiji, that is our mother cow. And then Swamiji made a sarcastic remark, and he says, yes, who else will bring such wonderful sons? So this is sometimes, when people don't want to do something, they will rationalize it and use some philosophy from their own scriptures to justify the indifference, or for not practicing what is truly taught. So advesta sarva bhutanam maitra karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankara. This is very, very important. Nirmamo means one who does not have an idea of mine. Mama is mine. Nirmama means not mine. Nirahankara, who does not have the idea of egotism. Ami amar, I and mine. That means amar means those things that belong to me. I means I am the doer. That, according to Sri Ramakrishna, is what is Maya. So when we say we are bound in Maya, that means we have this sense of doer and ownership. What are the doership? Okay, whatever action happens through the body, through the mind, through the speech, we think we are the doer. And the result, of course, will be there. And if it's a good result, we are success, we are happy. It's not so good, we are miserable. And so, like I said, the pendulum swings. To go beyond this idea of mind, Sri Ramakrishna gives a beautiful example to say that the understanding should be that we are not owners of things, we are just trustees of things. Certain things have been entrusted into us. A trustee does not say, I'm an owner of something. And that includes everything: your house, your children, especially the attitude should be, especially, say, family members. Naturally, parents will have a strong identification. These are my children. That is one way of looking. But another way of looking is that every one of them is a reincarnating soul. In this particular life, it has chosen to come in my family. And I call that child mine. But really, all that it is a traveling, reincarnating soul. And whom do they belong to? They belong to the divine. We are all sparks of the divine being. Therefore, our attitude should be that we are trustees, that they have come to us and we will serve them, but we should not extend the tentacle like the octopus does to, to and tie things to us by the idea of mind. Because with that, mind comes suffering also. Because when it comes to us, we are happy. When it's taken away from us, we'll become miserable. But if we say, all belongs to the divine, they come and they remain with me as long as he wishes, they go whenever he wishes, I do not have ownership of them. And likewise, ahankara. Egotism is I am the doer, or I am rich, or I am powerful, and all that. And this ego is the cause of all misery. So, nirmamo nirahankara, sama dukkha sukha. Dukkha and sukha, you understand? Dukkha is sorrow, sukha is happiness. In all those situations, one should be same. Sama dukkha sukha. This is a great discipline to practice. You will find that in life, this pendulum of success and failure, gain and loss, victory and defeat, praise and censure, all those things will happen. And if we are subject to that or attached to those things, then our happiness and misery also swings along with that. To maintain uh, equanimity of mind, samatvam. That's in chapter 2, Sri Krishna talks about, chapter 3, samatvam yogam uchyate. Samatvam. Yoga means uh, equanimity of mind. In all situations, being unperturbed, not getting very excited when something wonderful happens, not getting very upset when things do not happen. Maintaining a degree of calmness, consciously, unperturbable type of things. That type of nature is a good quality of a devotee. So, Shami. Shami means one who is forgiving. So when is one is unperturbed, even when abused or assaulted and all that, you'll find that when we deal with people, you might have a spiritual way of looking at them. They might not have that same spiritual way of interacting with us. And so, and everyone would not understand our own spiritual aspirations. They might do some things that might cause pain to us. What is our reaction? What should be our reaction to that? Our reaction should be that of forgiveness. Who is a perfect example of that forgiveness? To whom so much suffering was brought upon by people, and yet he was so forgiving? Christ. You see, even on the cross, he says, "Oh Lord, forgive them, for they not know not what they do." So, in ignorance, people will do many things, and in that ignorance, they will do harm to us, create disturbance to us, and all those type of things. We who are sort of versed with the scriptures and this understanding and are spiritual seekers, we should not react when they um, when they do harm to us. But that does not mean that you just welcome all those sufferings and be treated in a bad way, and just put up with that and keep on forgiving. So sometimes these teachings are misunderstood because some people think that, okay, I have to be forgiving and people will keep on troubling me and I will just keep on doing that. And then result is that we become very, very miserable. Mind is not very strong. And so is that the teaching? In that sense, this beautiful parable of Sri Ramakrishna is very, very practical. You see, in all these things, some practicality is necessary. What is that? Hiss, but do not bite. And so this is the teachings for the householder, people out in the field of work. For the monks, they should not even hiss. So what is the story? Let me repeat, because it's so practical and you'll need to remember this in different situations. So I might have told this before, but let me repeat that once more. So there were in a village, a couple of children, cowherd boys, were grazing their cows out in the field, in the pastures. And there was a brahmachari passing through the village. He was crossing that particular field. And as he was going through, these boys ran to him and said, "Sir, don't go that way. There's a very poisonous and vicious snake down there. If you go down that way, it will come around to bite you." Brahmachari said, "Okay, don't worry about it. I know some mantras. I know I'll take care of myself." So as he was passing through the village, lo and behold, that snake came out of the hole and started running towards it. And as it came close by, the brahmachari uttered some mantras, and the power of the mantra was such that this snake just lay down at its feet, totally like a earthworm, helpless. And so the brahmachari talked to him and said, "What are you doing? Give up this vicious nature of unnecessary going and biting people. It's not good for you. And not only just give you that instruction, I will also give you the means by which you can get rid of this vicious nature. Here's a mantra. Repeat this. In due time, it will have its effect and you will get rid of that tamasic nature. Anger is tamasic. And he said, when I will be returning this way again in 1 year's time, and then I will meet you again. And so he left, and the snake truly was fascinated or sincerely began to follow, repeat the mantra, and the nature of that mantra was such that slowly its vicious nature began to calm down, abate away. And not only that, he gave up his nature of hunting mice and other things, frogs and things, animals that it was eating. It began to live on flower, fruits and became a vegetarian, so to say. And so his whole nature changed. The boys also noticed that nowadays this snake doesn't come around charging at them, and they became a bit daring. And one day, one of them reached out and grabbed hold of the tail of the snake and dashed it on the ground a couple of times and spun it around and threw it away, breaking the backbone of the snake. That night, somehow the snake crawled into its hole, and from that then on, it would not even come out in the daytime. It would come out at night, pick up something to eat, and then crawl in. And so, after 1 year, the brahmachari returned this way, and then met the boys and says, "Where's the snake? How is it?" "Oh, we have killed it. Uh, we found that it was not attacking us one day, and then one day we, gave it, got hold of it and gave it a nice thrashing." And the brahmachari said, "No, no, it cannot happen. He will not die unless the result of the mantra comes to fruition." So he went out and called it by its name, and the snake crawled out of its hole and came and bowed down in front of the brahmachari with all respect and everything. The brahmachari looked at him, it was all skin and bones. And said, "What happened to you? Uh, how come you are in this miserable plight?" And the snake had become so sattvic that it even forgotten that the boys had beaten it. So he says, nowadays, I'm just living on fruits and leaves and all that. But the brahmachari said, "It can't be that. The boys are saying that they dashed you on the ground." And then he remembered, yes, yes, but they are innocent boys, how, don't blame them. They do not know what a wonderful change has come on, upon me as I have been repeating this mantra. And therefore, I have forgiven them, and I've just been following your instruction. And then the brahmachari said, I did not ask you, I asked you not to bite them. But why did you not hiss? And so you see this subtle difference in this beautiful parable is there. To protect yourself, Sri Ramakrishna says, in this world there are good and bad people. And you'll come across bad people, and if you let them close, they will do harm to you. So to prevent them taking advantage of you and injecting their poison into you, you have to at least hiss as a defense. But he says, do not inject your poison into others. That means you can be a bit defensive, but you should not be offensive to seriously cause harm to them. So you'll find that this parable would be much more applicable to you in life, as you will uh, find different situations and say, what do I do? Do I just become very compassionate and let everyone treat me whichever way they want? And that would, or be more practical and protect yourself, but one should not inject one's poison into others. So, he who is not hateful towards any creature, who is friendly and compassionate, who has no idea of mind and heart, who is even minded in sorrow and happiness, and who is forgiving. Then, Santusta Satatam Yogi, Yatatma Dridhanishchaya, May Arpit Mano Buddhi, Mad Bhakta, Yo Mad Bhakta Samay Priya. You'll find that in quite a few verses hereafter, the verses will end with Yo Mad Bhakta Samay Priya. Such a devotee is very dear to me. He who is such a devotee of mine is dear to me. So this is very interesting. Normally, we hold God dear to us. Okay, we love God, but that God will also love us in return in a wonderful, that is so wonderful. So, how do we endear ourselves to God? That would be the line of thinking from here on. Because if I practice all these things as taught by the divine, Sri Krishna, who is a manifestation of that supreme divine, then it's not just that I'm practicing this for my spiritual growth, all that will happen. But in my relation to the divine, God is, I become very dear to him also. So it's a two-way relationship, the child loves the mother, but the mother also loves the child. So we as jivas love the divine mother who is God, and the mother also loves the child. So when the mother sees all those wonderful qualities that she has been teaching in the child, and the child is sincerely making an effort to put them into practice, then, then it brings so much pride and joy in the mother. Likewise, when the devotee practices all these things, and it's not easy and he struggles, but he makes a sincere effort and makes successes, has some success. That also brings joy to God, because he sees his infinite perfection reflected in some way in the his creation, which is the jiva. So, what are these? Santusta Satatam Yogi. Santusta Satatam. He who is ever content, irrespective of getting or not getting what is needed for the maintenance of this body. Satatam means all the time. This is a great virtue. Santusti. Santust. Most people uh, have innumerable desires and forever are running after desires. They run after things which they don't even need. They have got so much that they could use, but they would not use that. In early stage of life, they might start work, need to have a business to earn money, but at some stage they will have acquired enough that they don't really need to continue working. Yet the momentum of that will continue, and then it becomes a greed type of thing, or they can't get out of it. They have not cultivated any other discipline or knowledge to to take up in later in life. So even then, when they try to sit down, when they retire or something and give their mind to something spiritual, because they have not nurtured that mind, trained that mind, they are not able to really make any headway. So one has to start that early, and some degree of discrimination has to be there. What is that? What do I really need? And what are my wants and what are my needs? So santusta satatam yogi. This is a wonderful quality. Who is a yogi? The word yoga means to join. Comes from the yukta. Yukta means the jivatma or the paramatma. Mind is connected or joined to the divine. So a yogi is one person whose mind is always concentrated, focused, not on outside things, but inwardly to the divine in one's own heart. Yatatma didhanischaya, who has self-control. Yatatma. So if one doesn't have self-control, then the senses will drag the mind outwards. But if you can pacify the senses, make them calm, then it will allow, then only will it allow the mind to be introspective or introverted. Otherwise, they will drag the mind and make it extroverted, engaging with the world. So what are these senses? Okay, there are these five senses: Jnanendriyas, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, through which the external world is sensed. So these are the senses. The world outside there is a field of energy: light energy, sound energy, chemical energy, heat energy, and all those things. Those energies are detected and perceived through these five senses. And then in that interaction, we react to the external world. So, yatatma means not reacting to that. The senses will still come. It's not that you close your eyes and close your ears all the time, but you'll detach yourself. And the best way to is give the mind something more interesting. What is more interesting? The inner self, the pure consciousness that by which the senses function and the external world is illumined is far superior and better than anything out there. That type of discrimination is necessary and puts a check on the mind, says, it's interesting. Maybe the mind has been conditioned in that way for a long time, but what is within me is far superior than anything that the world has. And even if they were better, you would they are all part of this jagat, transitory. You might get them for a while, but they will slip out. So let me invest my time and energy in securing something that will not be taken away from me. That is the quest. So that's how one sort of restrains the senses from dragging the mind outwards. In the Kathopanishad, in the uh, I think third part, chapter 1, there is this wonderful analogy given: Atmanam Rathinam Vidhi Shariram Rathamevatu. So, this is the analogy of a chariot. What is that? The body is the chariot, the five senses are the horses yoked to the chariot. And these horses run after the five sense objects, five roads which are attracting the horses. So, the senses drag the chariot in that particular direction. However, if the senses are yoked together or held together by the reins, the ropes tied to the horses, what are these ropes? That's the mind. And who's holding the rope? That is the buddhi. So if the buddhi is alert and awake and strong, it will hold the ropes tight and restrain the horses from dragging the chariot in whichever direction it chooses, but it will control and guide it to the destination it wants to take. So, in this, and behind, of course, the charioteer is the Jivatma, who is the rider. So, the most important person in this whole setup component element is the Buddhi. If the Buddhi is alert, everything is good. If it is not alert, if it's weak, then we are totally at the mercy of the horses, the senses, and and that's how the journey goes. Uh, it takes us wherever it wants. We are not going for a ride; it is taking us for a ride, so to say. So in a spiritual life, you'll find that in all these practices, one of the primary aims is to awaken, strengthen this buddhi, what we call here in our English translation intellect, or the spiritual intelligence, because the power behind that intellect is the spirit. That is the whole idea, uh, or the most essential tool that we need to succeed in the spiritual journey. And that's why in the olden days, the Gayatri mantra would be given at a young age, and children would be taught to practice this Gayatri mantra. The purpose was to awaken this buddhi. Bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yona prachodayat. When this buddhi is awakened, especially at the young age, when the senses are not very powerful, uh, so in children it is there, but you can control it. But in the youth, when you come to that stage, then these horses are really, really strong and are very, very difficult to control. So in this first 25 years of training, which is the brahmacharya age of period of training, studentship and all that, there are all these disciplines to be practiced. In the traditional system, the students would go and live in a gurukul under the guidance of a spiritual teacher, and they will practice all these strict disciplines of control of body, mind, and senses. That is what those three threads, the Jenu, the sacred thread that a Brahmin boy is invested with at the time of getting the Gayatri mantra, they symbolize that this particular person has taken this vow of controlling in the body, mind, and speech. That's the symbolic meaning of that. And so when one does that for a long time, then one naturally develops that control over the senses. So yata atma, this is how the old system of training was there. And in time, it has all gone away, except very few people who practice it. And that's how the situation is in this Kali Yuga. So, santusta satatam yogi yatatma didha nischaya. Firm, didha means firmness, nischaya. Nischaya means conviction. What is that? A person who has got didha nischaya, who has firm conviction. What is that? With regarding to the reality of the self. So, conviction, when you have a strong conviction, it's like a type of mind that is steady, fixed, and does not deviate easily. So, and is able to maintain that course of thinking when temptations and challenges come. So, Dridha Buddhi, Dridha Nischaya, that's a wonderful quality. Strong conviction, strong minded, strong willed person is there. That means that willpower doesn't give up and shake and waver, unwavering conviction. Dridha Nischaya. What is that conviction? This whole world and everything is transitory, asat. The pure consciousness behind the whole universe, the ocean, that is the only permanent reality. A purity of a sattvic mind, a constant discrimination, vichara, viveka. This, with the help of which one always keeps in front of, in their mind, about the true nature of this world and the true nature of themselves, the higher selves. And what is that? Everything here is transitory, asat. Only the spiritual element in us, that is the permanent reality. And if we can bring that type of discrimination at any time when we want to make some decision in life, and say, what is the basis by which I'm going to decide something? Let me not just look at profit and loss and this and that, or temporary happiness and misery. These are transient. Let me use that highest yardstick to make the judgment. What is that? And that is what Sri Ramakrishna prescribes as one of the first disciplines. When people would ask him, what is the way? He always say, always discriminate between the real and the unreal. Real means which is permanent, unreal which means which is transitory. Sat, asat, vichar. That's the first discipline. So when by constantly practicing it and applying that at any juncture when you're making some decision or making any choices, ask that question. Is this going to take me to that permanent aspect of myself, the eternal aspect, the Atman? Or is it to deal with this changing world, and then you apply that, have that conviction all the time. So that doesn't mean that you ignore and disregard and are not attentive to the things of this world, but you don't begin to take them as the reality. You deal with them, take care of your body, your health, your family and people and house and all those things, but always being mindful. These appear, they remain, and they disappear. Nothing is permanent here. So that type of understanding is Dridha Nischaya. Maya arpit manobuddhi. So this is the next part. Maya arpit. Dedicate your mind and intellect to me. Why do you dedicate that mind and intellect to me? Because the mind and intellect have come out of that pure consciousness. So it doesn't belong to you, but it belongs to that supreme being. It's like out of that water vapor has come forth the water, and out of that water has come the ice. So these are the products. The water vapor is the source. The water vapor itself comes out of some other form of energy, non-material, so to say. So likewise, everything that has been projected in this world, external world outside there, the physical body, the mental body, the causal body, even the ego has is a has exists because of the existence of the pure consciousness or the Atman. And therefore, when you say Mai Arpit, we offer that to its rightful owner. That means we should not even have the sense of identification and ownership as if this is my body. What is the body? It's just a bundle of matter held together by energy. Okay, and so long as that prana shakti is able to hold it together, the body persists. But when old age or some disease comes, then you'll find that it becomes increasingly challenging to maintain that form. And death is when the prana disengages and the body disintegrates and recedes to its where it has come from. So that what is that body? It is all various elements, panchabhutas. It has come out of that, it goes back to that. In between, somehow we begin to have this strong identification as if this is my body. So while we walk through that and use it for a purpose, but always remembering that that belongs does not belong to us. It's like, you go and rent a car. Okay, so when you rent a car, you don't have the sense that it is my car, you are the owner of the car. You say, I am rented it for a while, I'll use it, my task is finished, I return it. Likewise, we should have that type of attitude towards this body. We have rented this body, and it's meant to take us from point A to point B, a spiritual journey. And at some point, we'll have to get out of the car and leave the car behind. And that's what happens when the body dies, and the jivatma is ejected. Most of the time, he doesn't want to get out of the car forcefully. He's booted out of it. And so uh, that is how, and because of that attachment, it's a painful exit. So, santusta satatam yogi, yatatma dridhanischaya, mai arpita mano buddhi, yomad bhakta same priya. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. So, and we'll talk about Sri Krishna will in the remaining verses goes through this similar type of disciplines to be practiced, and we will look at them, try to understand them as well as possible. But the important thing is to practice it. So at the end of this notes, I have listed out these. How many are there? 40 qualities. You'll say, wow, so many to be practiced. But you'll find that they all sort of are overlapping each other. And so this should become the goal if you want to be a devotee or walk along the path of bhakti. It doesn't mean that you're just doing a little bit of ritual and ceremony in your little shrine and going to the temple and all that. It means practicing all these things in your everyday life. You see, nowhere it is saying that you should have a statue, a picture, and make a shrine and all that to me. That is somehow in this age and time we do that. But this real bhakti is described as practicing these various virtues. And what happens through that practice? The mind becomes pure, chitta shuddhi, and in that pure mind, the the pure Atman is reflected, and that's when we begin to get a sense that I am not really the body or the mind or the ego, but I am one with that universal consciousness, that the wave has come out of the ocean and let it merge into that ocean and become united with it. That is called samadhi, self realization, God realization, Atma Sakshatkara, Bhagwan Love, Nirvana. Different words are there to explain that experience. So we'll end here and then we will continue from here the next time. So in the meantime, reflect on this and say, and then reflect on your own life and say, where are the different opportunities for me to practice that? Each one will has to do that. But you might make a nice chart and keep it somewhere so that you're constantly looking at that and looking at your day. Run through the what did I do? Did I practice any one of them today? Were there any opportunities for me to do that? Let me do it in my own small way, but and build up. Let that be the plan for the year. And I will know that by December, I have taken some of this seriously. And I feel good about it that I'm progressing in my spiritual journey. So, this is like a map. One has to use that map to move forward in the journey. But these are guidelines what to practice and what not to practice. We shall end here. ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरि ओम तत्सत् श्रीरामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु।